little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Hey guys, welcome to Shine On with Shannon. Hello, welcome back to another episode. I am grateful that you are here. I've actually tried to record several episodes of this podcast in the last few months. I'm sorry if I released like a really claiming my power episode and then just kind of disappeared from my podcast. Here comes the excuses. I had a computer blow up. I had a shift in work perspective. I started traveling more and I took a little personal break. And I think that that's important to share because so often people will start projects and then they just stop and they give themselves a little break because life happens and then they don't get back into it. They just let their dream fade away. They think, oh, I tried it. I didn't do very good at it. And I walked away and nothing comes of it. This podcast and many of my podcasts and projects are something that I plan to come back to many times, even if there is a shift in perspective or conversation or even lifestyle, because I think it's important for people to realize that we evolve. We evolve as humans, we evolve as species, we evolve in technology and what is popular. Though I haven't had episodes of this podcast, I have done many other episodes of the Bring Me to Life podcast, as well as live episodes on my Facebook and my Instagram. So if you guys are following me here on my Shine On with Shannon podcast, but you're not on any of my social medias, I highly suggest that you hop over there for some more content because I get a lot more interaction there on the Facebook because people can ask questions, and I really hope that you guys can start joining in the conversation and ask more questions as well. And that's what I'm going to start doing, is answering more of the questions that people have for me here in this space so that I can give you guys somewhere to hear the response. So often I'll get messages on Facebook and it's getting to a point where I can't answer all of them immediately as I receive them, and I get kind of sad because I want to have a connection with you guys and I want to be able to share my perspective and give you guys something to go from if you're coming to me for my perspective and asking questions. So real quick, shout out to all of you that do ask me all the spiritual things. I love you guys. Please keep sending questions, even if I don't answer you directly. I hope you're listening here. And today I'm going to discuss a couple of different topics. Today I want to talk about grief. I want to talk about transitions, life upgrades, and timeline shifts. I've been talking to a lot of people about timeline shifts, and I kind of feel like that's where I was during some of the last episodes. I was going through a huge shift in what my reality was. And when I tell people that they're going through a timeline shift, it's kind of, it's a little woo-woo for them at first. They're like, what do you mean I'm hitting a timeline shift? Does this mean that my past lives are changing and this, that, and the other? And in some ways, yes, it does. It means that you're taking a perspective of life and you're shifting it with the free will of choice, because you have the power of choice. In a couple of different discussions I've been a part of in various podcasts that I hope you check out on the Bring Me to Life network, there's a couple of different things that are going to be popping up there soon, so stay tuned. But a big discussion lately has been destiny versus choice. And I'm a firm believer that we have free will choice and that there are certain life obstacles that are destined, and how we react to them will kind of trigger that for us in the future. That comes very true when it comes to relationships, big life transitions with jobs or like living circumstances, as well as how we handle our grief and how we process our grief and our healing, our life healing. So what's really important is healing is something that is continuous. Healing is something that is going to continue, and so is grief. So often we think grieving is something that happens really quick, or you should have it done in a certain amount of time, like somebody passes, and they always say time heals. And time does indeed heal, but it doesn't make it go away. Sometimes things heal, but they leave a scar, and that's often what I feel is grief and many life obstacles. So being somebody that deals with a lot of grief in my life, I've lost so many people when I was really young. I had to really learn quickly how to process loss, how to process change. After losing my mom, I had a huge change in my life. I went from being somebody who had both parents, whether they were very stable or not, I still had both of them. And I got to see a very masculine and feminine perspective. My mother was very nurturing, very, very attentive, but she worked very hard. She was a very hard worker and was actually the worker of the family because my dad had a little bit of some disabilities and reasons that he didn't focus on work, but he also didn't focus on home. He was doing a lot of healing on his own. So very early on, I got to watch the healing process and see how somebody else had to heal through very traumatic events that happened in their life. That being said, when I lost my mom, I was living with my healing parent and things got pretty wild pretty quickly. When you don't grieve properly, a lot of really dark substances and dark choices can come across your path, and they become very tempting. And that's where I think that grieving and transition and life upgrades are so important, as well as timeline shifts. Each choice you make when you're grieving or when you're transitioning really affects your outcome. Now, a lot of people think you just grieve when someone dies, but that's not true. People grieve when anything large happens that you feel a loss from. So that is also very true in relationships, in romantic relationships, in friendships, in family relationships. When somebody leaves your life in a way that there's no coming back to the same. Often this happens in divorces and in romantic relationships. When you go through a breakup, there's no coming back from that in the same way. Oftentimes things have been said and choices have been made that are very, very hurtful and very, very hard to forget or forgive. Sometimes you can forgive, but you won't forget. So it doesn't ever go back to being the same. Something happens and it changes your whole perspective on reality. And as much as you love that person, they're not the same person to you anymore. So you have to grieve that relationship. You have to grieve what was and what will no longer be. And you have to make a choice. How are you going to respond to that? Oftentimes when we go through breakups, there's a lot of talking shit. There's a lot of just he said, she said, they said, whatever. This happened, that happened. And everybody wants their personal perspective to be shown. And it's not needed. It's like we have this want and this need to show up a certain way and to be seen and judged. It's like we ask to be judged when we have to share certain perspectives. If we can just breathe and take it for what it was and learn the lessons on our own, I'm learning from personal experience that it's often better to just heal and move on, because there is no need for the he said, she said. There is no need for friends and family to pick sides. Now, in breakups, we also grieve the future that we think that is going to happen. I talk about this not because I'm going through it right now, but because I've been through it. And because many of my clients, my friends, and my family come to me when they're going through breakups and they ask how I survived through it and got such a divine partner for me in the now. And I say I had to really, really realize that I had to let go of any expectation and to just be in the now and to be really appreciative of the now. When I asked for who I have now as my divine partner, I asked Spirit for that. And I said, I want a friend that's going to get me and not leave. I didn't ask for a romantic partner. I didn't ask for a soulmate. I didn't ask for the most perfect person. I asked for a friend that was going to get me and that wasn't going to leave. Somebody that would be proud of me and that would cheer me on in my dreams. And to me, that was most important. To you, that may not be. Maybe you do really want to love her or whatever. But when people ask me what works for me, that's all I can teach from. And when people ask me how they can call in their soulmate or their twin flame, I literally cringe inside. I literally cringe. Because to me, soulmates and twin flames are not what we should be looking for. We should be looking for love within ourselves, and we should be looking for love from our friends, but not in a way that is judged, but in a way that we are just so pure to who we are, and we are ourselves, and we are comfortable in ourselves, so that that love finds us because we're giving out love. That doesn't mean you have to be perfect. That doesn't mean you have to go all love and light, because love and light is not healthy all the time. Like, yeah, you want to be love and light sometimes, and nobody wants to be around somebody who's pessimistic and angry all the time, but it's truly important to be yourself. This is also the same for jobs. People come to me all the time and they're like, I hate my job. How do I do what you do? Well, first of all, are you sure you want to do what I do? Do you want to work through people's problems with them all the time, especially if you're having a little bit of a hard time working through your own problem? Do you want to have to schedule your day and to be on other people's schedules? Like, just because you want to have a freed up schedule, you may not want to do exactly what somebody else is doing. I can tell you that it's not all like rosebuds and happy go fairy tales over here. I want you to find something that really truly speaks to your heart and something that makes you happy, and to teach others. If teaching is your thing, I firmly believe everybody should be teaching, sharing, and just being themselves. Maybe not preaching, but teaching, which I think is a little different. It's just sharing. If you guys think I'm preaching, I'm sorry. You can tune out right now. I'm not trying to preach anything other than just share my perspective and answer some questions that people have sent me. But when it comes to jobs, if you hate your job, you don't have to quit it right now, because you need a bridge. You need a way to transition from what you're currently doing to your dream. But find what makes your heart happy and make a choice. And sometimes people lose a job that they really loved, and then they have to grieve that. Or they retire. Their body is tired, and it's time for them to retire, and they grieve that. They become sad. They're not sure what to do. And there's a transition that needs to happen. There's a healing process where you need to remember who you are and truly find that. Find a way to access that and find a way to bring that to life. When you're living a lifestyle that no longer serves you, it's okay to change. We're souls having a real life experience so that we can learn and change. One thing that is constant in this world is change. And it's so important to us to freaking go out there and to experience it and to do something that brings you joy. If you're in a relationship that no longer serves you, you don't have to be mean to that person. You don't have to break that person's heart in an evil way or an angry way or even walk out. Sometimes you don't even have to give them an explanation other than, I think we've grown apart. I'm ready to see you be the best version of you. Let's just give each other the best lives by giving space. And sometimes that happens, and the other person, they're not necessarily happy with that explanation, but it's honestly the best explanation you can give is that you're just a different person now. It's not about them. It's nothing that they could have done differently. We just change as humans. We just change. We have a chemistry inside of us that is always shifting. When we find out who we truly are, sometimes we find out things about our family or our past, generations, ancestors, and it shifts and triggers something within us. That's something that was been really big for me as a child that has been basically adopted through different families. Each time I find out something new about a different generation or somebody in my birth family, I do feel a little different inside. It's like something unlocks and a new path of healing reveals itself. So not only am I dealing with grief of people that I've lost as an adopted child or a child that's been through like the foster system, you grieve people that you've never known. You grieve friendships that could have been, relationships that could have been. And sometimes those are the hardest to grieve because you had no no opportunity. And people ask how we deal with that. And I like to use meditation and I like to use art because it gives me a chance to explore that energy from within, to explore it from a universal perspective that lets it channel through, and I get to feel it right in my heart and also in my mind and just experience it in a different way. You can ask people for stories, you can get different perspectives, but what truly matters is how you see a situation. People also grieve when something traumatic happens within families that is maybe sexual. It's always, I want to say it's surprising, but I don't know if surprising is even the freaking word anymore. I think it's more sad and depressing to know how many people suffer from sexual trauma. Now that might be a trigger for some of you, and if so, I'm sorry. You can tap out. But so many people have experienced some form of sexual trauma. And it's brought up so many questions for so many people. It's a lot, because people say, if there's this God, this Almighty, this Spirit, how did these things happen? How do these things happen? How do children get triggered and attacked and cornered and tortured? How do people do such sexual and intimate things in such a horrific way? And it's because of choice. It's because of choice. It's because somewhere along the line, the person taking action made a choice. And likely there was somebody taking action upon them that also made a choice. And how we respond to that choice is what it reflects in our whole life. It's how we grieve and it's how we heal. So if someone hurts you, someone touches you, someone corners you, someone does something to you, in a way, whether it's violent, it doesn't even have to be sexual. It can be violent. It can be general abuse, like someone smacks you, hits you, corners you, verbally attacks you, mentally breaks you down, whatever it is. How do we forgive that person? People are like, I don't want to forgive that person. I'm not ready. There's no need for me to forgive that person. And that's fine. That's fine. You do not have to forgive that person. But what do you get? What do you get from holding anger towards the situation? Obviously, you don't want to invite that person to your dinner table. Obviously, you do not want that person in your life. But then we question, how do others talk to that person? Why is it fair that this person still has friends or family or anybody that cares about them? You're making a choice to send hate to that person because they send hate to you. This is something I had to realize myself. If this doesn't fit for you, that's totally fine. I hold no judgment or expectation for anyone else to have any perspective as of this. But for me, this is what's helped me become who I am. And many of you have asked me how I've dealt with such things. Like, how do you approach a family member that still talks to somebody that maybe abused you? How do you do that? Well, here's my perspective is I've had family members that's happened to. I've had family members that have been judged. I've had family members that have been basically exiled from their tribe because of things that they had no control over. Maybe they were the one that was abused, or maybe they were the abuser. But on either end, where is it right for the hate to push more hate towards them? There's a quote out there by a famous Dr. Martin Luther King that goes something along the lines of, hate can't cure hate. Only love can do that. And darkness doesn't cure darkness. Only light can do that. And that may seem cliche for me to drop that quote here, but it's something that's really got me through. If somebody is so terribly dark that they hurt you, they are so full of hate that in some way, they're trying to transfer that hate to you. And when that happens, when that energy touches you, when that energy affects your life and transforms you in a way, you're faced with a choice. You're faced with a choice of asking yourself, how do I respond? Do I let this make me angry, sad, depressed, locked down, hateful? Or do I take a nice breath and ask, why did this happen to me? They often say spirit won't do things to us unless we can find a way to learn or withstand them or teach others from it. So I like to remind myself that if something like that happens to me, even if it's terrible, there's something out there that thought I was strong enough to handle this, even if it was a choice made by someone else. It's important to really remember who you are in those moments. Is being hateful back really the answer? Is expecting those people to have no one really the answer? Is that going to cure anything? This may be a very unpopular opinion. I understand that. I mean, I'm also somebody who I don't really believe in the death penalty because I think a person should have to live with their actions. I think a person should have to live with their actions, and I think that they should have to prove that they deserve people's love. So I'm not saying that you should go out there and love that person. Again, you don't have to invite that person over. You don't have to have them at your dinner table. They don't even have to be a part of your inner circle. But what does it serve you to hold hatred towards other people that try to console them, that try to teach them, that try to guide them and to remind them that they made terrible choices? I think a lot of people get upset because sometimes things get swept under the rug. For generations and generations, people did not speak out. Women and men too. But specifically women and children, they didn't speak out when they were sexually harassed or abused because nobody listened and no one did anything about it. Because once you were married, the men were in charge. And that makes me angry. Yes. That is ridiculous that people felt that they were being hurt and harmed and they said nothing. I think that that's where we need to draw a line, is that people do need to be able to talk about these things. Things should not be swept under the rug. And where we get angry, where things do not heal, is when there are family members that are close to us, friends, family members, people of society, whatever, that are close to us, and they stay friends or connected to our perpetrators, our exes, or whatever the person is. And we ask ourselves why. It's because they're not acknowledging both sides. And I get that. But we also can't expect that person, the perpetrator, to not be alone. Because there has to be something that triggers and reminds them of what they did. And by still talking and seeing these people in our community, they have to live with that choice. Just as you live with the choice of being angry and hateful. But the more angry and hateful that you are in playing a victim, you're taking away from your survivor story. You're taking away from your strength. It's important for you to, instead of holding anger towards others for not seeing this person the way you did, they didn't have your experience. They're probably never going to see those people the way you did. They weren't in your soul and in your body when that was happening to you. It's for you to witness and for you to understand and for you to show others how to be the strongest version of you. Hold your ground and be able to talk about your experience. I think that's what's more important than holding anger. It's being able to talk about it, being able to teach others from it, being able to remind others that yes, it happened, but in a perspective and in a way that it's healing and it's motivating and it's not you playing a victim. Because when we play the victim, it seems like people don't take us seriously. It's like, oh, well, they could get over that. Well, yeah, people can get over that, but it takes time. But once you have that ability to heal, you're still going to want to talk about it because it's a part of you. And holding it in and not talking about it is sometimes what I think brings that anger. People ask me, how do I talk to my parents about somebody hurting me if they don't believe me? Well, first ask yourself, why is it important for them to believe you? And then ask yourself if you're willing to actually talk about it. Sometimes people are too scared to talk about it. So if you can't write about it, journal, or if you can't talk about it, journal about it, write about it. Find a way to release it. Find a way to write about what this person did to you and why it makes you angry, and really kind of study that and go through it. I have journals of many experiences that happened to me when I was a kid, and then as well as some that were just silly teenage stuff. And it was like, why did this make me so angry? And it's because I wanted to be seen and I wanted to be heard and I wanted to be understood. And now that I'm older and I'm going through this healing process, I often say, like, why was that so important? And it's because that's what we come here to do when we decide to be alive. As spirits, we want to be seen and we want to be witnessed. But you have a choice. Let's go back to the discussion about having a choice. You have a choice to declare how you want to be seen. Do you want to be seen as a survivor, or do you want to be seen as a victim? Do you want people to be sorry for you? Do you expect that apology? Do you expect people to be angry at something that happened, or your ex or your friend that is saying rumors about you? Do you want them to hate them? Is that hate going to serve you? Or do you just want to be seen for who you are? Do you want to be seen for what you've been through? We don't always know what the other person has been through to cause us pain either. And I think it's important for us to remember that though they may be dark, horrible people to us, they may be very sad, lonely, hurt people inside. And it's not our job to judge them for who they are and what they've been through, and sometimes for even what they've done to us. And it's more important to focus on our choice, our love, our path, than to worry about others and their perspectives of others. Again, I know this might be triggering. I'm sorry if I hurt anyone's feelings, and I know that this is an unpopular opinion for some, but this is what's worked for me and how I've been working through it. And sometimes it's hard and I have to be reminded these things because people hurt me and people make me angry. And I find out things about my past or even my future that sometimes make me angry. But I work through the grief and the transition, and I make timeline shifts. So let's talk about timeline shifts for a second. When people break up and they go through like a divorce or like a long-term relationship and they break up, we have, again, the opportunity to talk shit, or we have the opportunity to just move on and let that person live their life. I like to do the cord cutting, and sometimes people like to do this with others so that people can witness them doing it. It holds them to a higher standard, but cord cutting is something you can totally do on your own. Cord cutting is something that you can do in a way that is very ritualistic to you. You can light a candle, you can write down all the things you wish to release about that person. Some people will take that person's name and just put like a caution sign around it and then safely burn or destroy the paper, and it will keep them from it. Now, sometimes those are more like ritualistic ways, and you can also just pray. You can ask Spirit to release you of any connection to this person in the past, present, or future so that you may live your life in a brighter, more aligned way for your future. And then I like to meditate on timeline shifts or timeline jumping. And some people say that this is part of like epigenetics and different things like that. It's kind of meta, where you truly visualize yourself in a different lifestyle or a different lifetime. I mean, there was a time in my earlier years where I was on a very dark timeline. I made some choices and I was scared and I was angry. I went through a period of life where I just didn't understand its purpose. So that's where I came to a lot of these conclusions, and it gave me hope again. And I decided I wanted to change my timeline. For me, I was in the shower. So I was cleansing my body, and I decided that I no longer wanted to be attached to the person I thought I was, and that the relationship I was in didn't serve me. The job I was in didn't serve me. I just wanted to finish college, and I wanted a relationship again with just a friend, not necessarily a romantic relationship. I wanted a friend that I could connect with and that was not going to judge me and that would just let me be me. And I decided I was going to do a little I lit some candles. I actually planted some plants because I wanted to grow some new seeds. And I went down by some water after I got my shower, and I put a moment together, an experience. You can call it a ritual, you can call it whatever you want, but for me it was an experience. It was in a way a lot of prayer, a lot of meditation, and me talking to Spirit and telling it what I wanted, and made a jump in the timeline. I laid there after I cleansed my body in the shower. I walked down to some other water, like a water stream, and I talk about this experience a lot in different podcasts with CeeLo and things, and I started just visualizing what I wanted that life to be. And I told myself I had a timeline and I wanted it to shift. And I knew that I wanted to graduate college. I wanted to release myself of the relationship that no longer served me, whether that was going to be that person changing and becoming who I needed them to be, or that person would decide to leave on their own terms, and that we would just kind of have like a healthy separation. It didn't need to be this big drawn out thing. I mean, it was for a little while, but at that point when I made the decision to time jump, I was like, okay, this is done. I'm setting up a date. And this is when I want all this to happen. And I meditated on it and I just truly visualized it. And that's how I made this time shift. I wanted there to be happiness. And sometimes I would visualize myself in like a certain car. I would visualize going to on these adventures, and just the feeling I would have being surrounded by certain people, places, and things, and what I would be doing for a job. I didn't know that I would be podcasting specifically, and I didn't know that I would be doing some of the stuff that I'm doing, but I knew that I would be traveling, and I knew that I would be making things. So I'm still an artist. I'm still a jeweler. I was a jeweler then, but I made a different kind of jewelry. So when I did my timeline shift, there was a little bit of a personality shift for me, in a sense that I felt more driven and motivated, and my art styles changed a little bit as well. So I just meditated and I asked God, Spirit, the universe, whatever it is, to help me through this grieving process. My grandmother was really sick at the time, and there was a chance that she could either get really better or that she was going to have to pass. And that was part of my fear of the timeline jump, was those kind of things you don't necessarily have control over. Different choices you make may affect those kind of things in the timeline. So I asked Spirit to protect my grandmother in the timeline, and to give her the choice of free will. And I actually did kind of another prayer or ritual in a sense with a healer that gave my grandma the ability to shift her timeline. And in the end, she gave herself more time to experience life, but then she also told my aunt the day that she was going to pass. Like, it was like she made the choice. So other people control their own timeline in a sense, and that's where it comes back to this whole discussion today of other people as well as yourself, having the free will of choice and how we're going to grieve and how we're going to transition and how we're going to upgrade our lives. When I was in that relationship, it was very traumatic and slightly abusive. A little bit physically, but more so mentally and vocally. And I had the choice to respond in a way that I could have also been violent. I could have also been abusive, manipulating, or I could have even gotten authorities and legalities involved. But for me, I realized after talking with Spirit, because when all this was happening, I started meditating more and I started allowing myself to just feel connected to Source, God, whatever. And it showed me and reminded me that I had a choice and that I was making the choice to stay in that situation. I was making the choice to allow him to continue to yell at me, to belittle me, to make me feel as if I wasn't enough. That was my choice. So when people come to me and they say their partners are being horrible to them, I found that it's important to remind them that they're making that choice to stay there. And you may say, well, I have bills, I have children, I have responsibilities, I have a house, I'll lose everything. I'll lose everything. So often that's everybody's fear when it comes to their choice, is if they make the choice to leave, they lose everything. But what is everything if you're not experiencing the best version of your life? What is everything if it's causing you pain? What is everything if it's not letting you be the best version of you? What happens? You have to go find a new car. Maybe that new car is better for you. You got to find a new place to live. Find a friend or a family member or somewhere, someplace. There's plenty of options of transitional opportunities. Does it hurt your pride a little? Well, do something afterwards. Let your pride be hurt just long enough for you to get your feet together and do something so awesome that makes you, not anyone else but you, so proud of you that one little part of your journey is just a stepping stone towards you forgiving yourself for allowing yourself to stay in a situation that no longer serves you. Maybe the relationship's already ended and you're in that state of you feel like you've lost everything. What can you do right here, right now, to feel more alive again, to bring you joy? What brings you joy? And I'm really hoping that whatever it is that brings you joy is something that's truly bringing you joy and not just distracting you from your life. Because there are times that I'm sure I thought substances, or for me it's craft supplies and shopping or something like that would bring me joy. And really what I needed to bring me joy was some nature, a good friend to listen, a night on the couch to actually rest and relax, not push myself to go out and party, to distract myself, not push myself to even go to be surrounded by people when that's not truly what I needed, but to go within and to ask myself, what would be the best thing for me right now? Sometimes it's, man, I really want to travel, but I don't have money. I'd make a painting and I'd find a way to sell it so that I'd have enough gas money or food money to go out and do the thing. I'd find an odd job, or I'd get a new job. Maybe I don't like that job. Maybe it's working at a gas station or a fast food place or something that I'm not going to necessarily enjoy, but it'll bring me enough money and enough security to go out there and I don't know, whatever it is you need to do. Maybe you need to get a car. Maybe you need to get a bike. Maybe you need to get a bus ticket to go elsewhere. Whatever it is you need to do to bring yourself joy, to get you to that next step, put one foot in front of the other, friend, and do it. If you have a job you hate, you're ready to make the jump, start your business plan. It doesn't have to be a big thought out plan right at first, but start out with your why. What is your why? When you're missing somebody that you've loved and you've lost, whether they've passed away or they've just changed who they are in the here and now, what is your why for missing them? Is it because they were awesome at one point, or is it because they were something, or you thought they were something that they weren't? Maybe it's somebody that you truly loved and they really were the best person in your world, your rock, your savior, your partner, your grandmother, your brother, whatever. And you really miss them and you're grieving them and you're remembering how much you love them. What can you do to honor them? What can you do in your life, your timeline, right here, right now, and in your future as well, that can honor them? Honor the them that they were and they are in your heart. You have an ex that walked away. They're not who you thought they were anymore. That's okay. Who were they to you when you loved them the most? How can you honor what you saw in them when you loved them the most? And how can you forgive yourself for allowing it to go on when they were no longer that person? Because you can forgive yourself by remembering why you loved them, and that love is the most important thing. Love is the most important thing in this life. Whether a person knows you love them or not, you experiencing that love and knowing that love and witnessing them, that helps the world go round. There's so many people that I admire and love that have probably no idea that I exist. But I know that somehow, some way they feel that love and it helps them be a better person. And if it doesn't help them be a better person, it helps me be a better person because I love them. So that being said, I feel like I've babbled a lot. I've probably shared a whole lot of unpopular opinion. Again, I'm not trying to preach. I don't even know if I'm trying to teach at this point right here, right now. I'm just trying to share my perspective and to also work on my own healing. I've had quite a crazy couple of weeks. I've had a lot of just discoveries in my own generational healing, as well as who I am as a person, who I plan to be. I'm really excited to see the Bring Me to Life network going in some new directions. We have a whole bunch of new projects, new opportunities coming. So please stay tuned to that. Check out bringmetolife.com with the number 2. And you can always find out more about me at shantasticshine.com. Shantasticshine.com has my various services, including soul sessions where I discuss whatever it is you need, whether that's a card reading or connecting with a passed over loved one, an angel, a spirit, the higher self, or just a general read on what you should be expecting in your current energy. And I am helping CeeLo in doing my own events also on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 6 p.m. in Cumberland most weeks. You can check into our Facebooks to see where else we may be, what else we're doing as we shift. And until next time, I hope you guys stay awake, shine on always. Love you. Bye. Thanks for shining on with us.